which was $2,000 a year. But during the war, we had to work on Saturdays. So I got an extra, so that was actually $2,400 a year. Nathan had been a P2, and when we got married, he was a P3. So I think he was earning $3,200 a year.
Well, you had quite a bit
So
of money.
between the two of us,
That's a lot of money then.
it was a lot of money. So, we could afford that rent. We didn't have a car, of course. You couldn't get a car.
No, so you were getting paid over $450 a month. I only got $465 when I graduated from college in 1965.
Well, this was for the two of us, though.
I know, but in terms of spending money, it was still...
Yeah. We were very comfortable. We had no problem. We weren't supporting a car, and we didn't have any kids.
Yeah. So when... Now, I can't remember. I know you've told me some things before, and probably anybody watching this tape will know many more things than I do already, but you quit then in 1946?
Yeah, well, I became pregnant, and in those days, you didn't work past around your... I think I quit in May, and David was born August 11th. So...
And you were still living in the garden apartment?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so did you work again after that? I mean, I know you were a teacher, but when did that all happen?
Oh, that was way, way later.
After the kids were born?
After the kids were born. Then I kept having kids.
Yeah.
Well, no, then we went to State College, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I just had David.
Yeah.
And David was...
That was, well, why did you move there? Was that... I do know, but you tell me.
Well, Nathan had lost his job with the government when men came back, when the war was over, and the men came back, and they all got, rightfully so, they got their jobs back. But he was out of a job. He did get a job with the, I think the Navy Department. But anyway, he had always wanted to go back to school and get a doctorate. So he applied, and he had two offers. One from Penn State and one from Ohio State for fellowships. So we left David, this was probably in June of 47. We left David, my parents came, we had bought a house by then in Washington. And my parents came and stayed with David, who was about 8 months old, and we went to visit Penn State and Columbus, Ohio, where the University of Ohio is, to decide, which one we wanted to go to. And you know how we got there?
No.
You wouldn't believe this, but we hitchhiked.
Oh, really?
We hitchhiked as far as to Penn State, and we visited there, and then we hitchhiked, I think, to Pittsburgh. And then we took a train from Pittsburgh to Columbus.
And then getting back?
We hitchhiked back. I mean, we didn't have any money.
How could you not have any money when you were earning over $5,000 a year?
Well, no, by that time I wasn't working.
You weren't working.
I wasn't working, and so anyway, that's how...
It's hard to imagine doing that now, isn't it?
Yes,
you did that?
And so... we decided on Penn State. For one thing, their fellowship was, I think, twice what the fellowship was at Ohio State. And then the problem was we couldn't get a place to live.
I think I've heard about this.
You heard about that.
No, well, tell me. I mean, this is...
Well, so Nathan accepted the fellowship, I guess the beginning of the summer. And he had to go in September. So I went there once during the summer. I didn't hitchhike then. Can't remember, I must have taken a train or something. And tried to find a place. And there was no married students housing at that time. There was just nothing available. And so we moved out of our house. We rented the house, and had rented out the house. And we moved in with my parents, who had bought a house by that time. And come September, Nathan had to go off to school. So he went, and I was there with David, who was just a year old. And it took until November for him he kept looking for places, and he found this. Have you ever heard of me talk about McAlevy's Fort?
I've only heard that you had this place out in the country somewhere with with this funny furnace or something.
Well, the thing is, both Nathan and I were brought up in cities, in apartments. We never lived in a house, except, we had this house in Washington, but that had a I can't remember what kind of, probably an oil furnace or something. So he found this house in McAlevy's Fort, which was 15 miles out of Penn State, out of State College. We don't have a car. But it had a furnace, a coal furnace, which everybody said, oh, it's a very good furnace, works fine. There was running water. There was a creek outside, and that's where the water came from that was connected to the pipes in the house. So it was perfect. The water was okay for laundering, for bathing, but it was not drinkable. There was a well out in the backyard. And I found out that what priming the pump means, that you really do have to prime the pump. We primed the pump, and then we had this big thing that we would fill up and bring into the kitchen.
It just doesn't fit Nathan doing this.
Well, either one. Well, what happened when people, you supposed to start a coal furnace, you start it with kindling, you put the coals on, and then it's supposed to go all year. You just add coal.
Right.
Well, between the two of us, neither one of us knew what we were doing, and the furnace kept going out. So in the furnace, you have to wait till it cools off so you can take the ashes out and start all over again. So, now Nathan had to go to his classes in State College. There were some workmen who lived further away, and they passed through where we were living. And they picked him up and took him to school. So he had to go at 7 o'clock in the morning, regardless of when his classes were, because that's when they were going. And they came home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, sometimes he couldn't leave at 4, and because he had something that he had to do in the evening or something. So he would stay over with a friend, and I'd be there alone with David. But when he came home, he spent a lot of his time cutting up wood for kindling. And, it felt as if we were there forever. We really weren't there that long.
It still feels that way, huh?
We moved there at the beginning of November, I guess. And my mother said she wasn't letting me go out there by myself. And the way we moved was we rented a cab, believe it or not. We got this cab driver who, for a fixed price, took me, and I had the baby's crib and, the baby equipment that you need and our clothes. This was a furnished house. So my mother said, she's coming with us. She's not letting me go there by myself. So she came with us when we moved into this house. And, the cab driver, when we got there, he said, oh, this is a great house, and, good furnace. They didn't think anything was wrong with it. So I can't remember how long my mother stayed. She stayed, just for a few days or something, and then she took a train back.
I don't know why you didn't keep that furnace going.
I don't know. I probably couldn't do any better with it now, but we didn't keep it going. So meanwhile, Nathan is looking for a place to live, and he finally got an apartment in a fairly new building right across the street from the campus. It was a new fairly new apartment house, very modern. And of course, we didn't have a phone in this house, but there was like a little grocery gas station across the way. And Nathan could call me there, and the guy would come and call me to answer the phone. So when I heard that he had gotten this apartment, I was so excited, and I was telling him, about the guy in the store. So then his curiosity had gotten the better of him. He said, "How much rent are you paying for this house, that we were renting?" And I said, $45 a month. Well, he thought that that we were being screwed, that was so outrageous. I said, "But you know what we're going to be paying in State College?" I said, "It's $90 a month for a three-room."
It is a lot.
For a three-room apartment. He said, "Oh, but they've got high taxes there." That was okay. The $90 was okay. So that we were only there, and then so Christmas vacation came, and we went back to Washington to my parents for the vacation, and after vacation
So you're really only in this place for a couple of months.
Not even 2 months.
But it's been with you your whole life.
It was like forever. Well, I didn't know anybody there, and I never did get to know anybody. There were, I think, 2 churches and 3 stores. There was a school that went to the 2nd grade, and then the kids had to go someplace else.
Nothing out there.
And I would go out for walks with David, who was a year old. I put him in the stroller. It was cold, but I put a snowsuit on and we'd go out for a walk. Nobody was out walking. And I found out this was the only house in that little town, can't even call it a town, village, that had both central heating and plumbing. Some had one, some had the other, but this one had both. And it was I think the summer home of some people who lived in Philadelphia.
Did the furnace then heat the hot water too? Or do you remember?
I think probably. Oh, and then there was one period of time when the water broke down. We didn't have any water for 3 days. I mean, we had drinking water because we had this well in the back, but we had no water for washing for about 3 days. And he had to get somebody to come, some plumber to come out and work on that. The house didn't have a refrigerator. It had an ice box, but they didn't deliver ice in winter because you didn't need it in winter.
So Nathan's out there.
No, we had.
You kept everything outside?
No, there was a box.
Oh, I see.
A window box where you kept,
right.
Your perishable things
Yeah.
in the window box. So I know the problem was that like the milk would freeze. It was cold there.
So now Bob and Sandy were born
In State College.
in that apartment then?
No. By that, there was some what was called faculty housing. We lived in the apartment, for maybe a year and a half. I was pregnant, but we got an apartment in this faculty housing, which had 2 bedrooms, and so we were living there when both Bob and Sandy were born in this faculty housing, which was on the edge of town, and we still didn't have a car when we first moved there. So Nathan could get a ride with somebody, and it was like a mile from the downtown area where the campus
So when did you
was.
get the first car?
In the fall of 49.
Was that then? One time I saw the receipt. I used to use it in my financial planning classes. Was that, because I remember, I don't know if it was for that car, but it was for a brand new car.
Yes, we only bought new cars.
And it was like $2,000 or something, and on the receipt it said tank of gas, $12. So they charge you for the gas as well. I can't remember what it was, but it had power steering or something. It was something, a Buick maybe, I'm not sure.
No, it was a Pontiac.
Pontiac, okay.
It was a 49 Pontiac. And it was more, that we could have gotten a cheaper car but being as inept as we both were, we wanted a car with automatic transmission. And that was the cheapest car that was available with automatic transmission, was a Pontiac.
Power Glide or something.
Yeah, something. So we bought this car, and then we both had to take drive. Neither one of us knew how to drive. We took driving lessons.
Now, he graduated. How many years were you there for Nathan to graduate?
No, he graduated. He got his doctorate very, very quickly. He got his doctorate in 49. But then he was stayed on the faculty.
Yeah.
And we were there until 52.
Yeah.
Early 52.
And what about your mom and dad then? Were they still in Washington that whole time?
They were, yeah. They moved sometime during that time when we were in state college. They moved to Florida.
Is that place I saw in South Beach? There was an apartment down there that you still owned when I met you.
Yeah, no, that's not where they moved to.
Oh.
But that was my Aunt Helen and her family had come from France.
Yeah.
And they moved to the United States, and they had quite a bit of money. So they moved to Florida, and they bought this, was called Sunrise Court.
I've seen it.
Well, you probably, yes.
Remember we went down there?
Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah.
So I think there were 20 units, and they offered my father the job of being the manager for a free apartment. And so they went down there. Because my father, unlike my husband,
could fix things.
My father
he'd had the store.
Well, my father was very handy.
Yeah.
I mean, he could fix anything.
What year did he pass away?
65.
Okay. So obviously Sandy knew him really well. And
Oh,
the
yeah.
kids all knew him.
Yeah, the kids all knew.
And your mom.
And she died 7 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. And she, by that time, had moved to this. Did she live in that apartment? Because then you rented it out to someone, I remember.
Yeah, well, see, my father died. No, before my father died, my Aunt Helen, I think they sold the Sunrise Court, something, and they had another apartment house that they owned and lived in a couple of blocks away. And somehow my parents had an apartment there, which they just lived there. And that's where they lived when my father died. And then my mother stayed on there. I can't remember just how long. And my Aunt Helen said that they were selling the building, and they were moving to someplace on the beach in further north of Miami Beach, and that she would have to find a place. So that's when she found this condo right on the beach that you saw. That was right on the beach.
That would be worth a fortune up until a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And she bought it for, I think, $18,000.
Yeah. Okay.
And I remember I went down there for the closing, and we didn't have an attorney. And I figured, everybody's closing on the same terms. It's good enough for everybody else. It's good enough for us. We didn't need to pay for an attorney.
Now, what year was that?
What year was that? So my mother died
72, you said.
in 72. So I think probably around 69.
How old was your mom and your dad when they passed away?
My father was 76.
About the same as Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan was 78. And my mother was 83.
Hmm.
They were the same age, and she followed the statistics. Women at that time, statistically, women lived 7 years longer than men did.
Yeah. That's only a statistic.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's stop today, okay? And we will get together
Okay.
before this time next year. But next week, we're gonna have everybody over, Rick and the two boys, I hope. I think they're coming, yes.
Yeah, oh,
they
yeah.
are. And then
Oh, William's not going to miss that football game.
Dorothy and Scott and,
They're all coming.
and Jane and all the kids, so we'll have a
house full.
real house full and a really good day, right?
Yeah.
And are you gonna come and play football this year?
Well, I haven't played any other year. Why should this year be? I haven't even gone to watch.
I don't know if I'm gonna play this year either.
Depending on the weather, I may go and watch them. But
That will be good. All right. Well, we'll continue this
to be
soon.
To be
All right.
continued.